What's up guys, and welcome to another card review for the Genesis set cards. So today we're gonna be reviewing the spells and relics from Deception in the Genesis set. So let's jump right in. The first card we're gonna have is the All of Mirrors. I've seen this being played quite a few times, and it's pretty interesting because it's a 1 mana that summons 2/2, which would be kind of weak, but there's an interesting part about it, which is creatures that attack a mirror become confused. And they become confused until they die. It's not for a turn. So it's quite interesting because if you want to stall, and if you have some creatures on your board, this is a really good card to play to put some front lines up ahead. And then the creatures that kill the mirrors are gonna have a tougher time to be able to kill your creatures. So it's quite interesting. For me, I see that this card has a lot of potential, but I'm still gonna put it in the 3-star category. So 3 stars out of 5 for me. Next one we have is the Hypnos Puzzle Box. Target creature goes to sleep, add 2 random runes, items, or enchanted weapons to each god's end. It's okay, it's a good drawing mechanic because it also allows you to put a specific card to sleep, and as you're gonna see with a lot of deception spells, putting things to sleep and then killing or dealing extra damage to the creatures that are sleeping is kind of like Deception's theme. I call it like the ultimate stall mechanic. So this card's interesting, even though it's not that great. It allows you to draw 2 cards, but it's also giving 2 cards to the opponent. So it might be useful if you're running a super aggro deck and you have no cards but the opponent has a lot. Giving them cards isn't that big of a deal. And you need those cards to be able to go forward. But the thing is, you're gonna be subject to RNG, and you might get like super bad runes or NMs, and then the opponent gets the awesome ones, and then you're totally screwed. So for me, this card has to go into the 2 stars category. So 2 stars out of 5, because it's okay, but it's not that usable. Next, we have the Ignian Roulette, where you draw 3 cards, then pull 2 random cards from your hand onto the bottom of your deck. This card is super bad, in my opinion. It would be good. Well, it's actually quite good if you only have this in your hand. But then the effect is afterwards. So you draw cards and then you pull 2 random cards back into the deck. If it was before, if you had to discard specific cards, for example, kind of like the theme of death, where you obliterate, but here you just shuffle them back into the deck. If you had that type of effect where you'd select the cards you want to shuffle into the deck, then it would be super good because you just throw away the ones you don't want. But since it's random, for me it's really bad. So this has to go definitely into the 1-star category. So 1 star out of 5, because it's super. It's terrible. Next one, we have the Me 2/3, where you shuffle 3 copies of a creature into your opponent's deck. This is a meme card. Definitely 1 star, 1 star as well, because it's. What are you gonna play with this? You're gonna be giving 3 extra cards to the opponent, and right now there's no mechanic where, for example, they are penalized if they draw that card. Maybe if you be able to run this with a couple of death cards, where you give them the obliterate ones, but still it's really unusable unless they add new types of mechanics where you draw cards and you get damaged by it or things like that. This card is going to continue being totally worthless. The next one we have is Mirror Mirror on the Wall. Mirror Mirror draws a card and adds two copies of it into your opponent's deck. It's a 1-mana draw one, basically. It also gives 2 cards to the opponent. This might be interesting because it draws you a card for 1 mana, but then you're subject to RNG. Imagine you draw a Demogorgon and you're gonna give 2 extra Demogorgons to the opponent. So this would only work if your deck had like useless cards, and then you give those useless cards to your opponent. In that case, why would you be wanting to draw extra cards if most of them are useless? So this also has to go into the 1-star category because it's terrible. Next one, we have Nightmare. The first really good card we have here. Deal 2 damage to a creature. If it's sleeping, deal 3 damage instead. So a 1-mana deal 5 potentially is super good. There's also other types of spells that put creatures to sleep. There's one that puts 2 separate creatures, and this works pretty well with that because it gives you a lot of synergies, and since Deception has a lot of these effects and mechanics, and this can work, for example, with the Demogorgon. Like a Demogorgon deals 3 damage to an opponent creature. If he has something with 8 health, typically you'd be playing a Demogorgon with a lot of creatures on the board, but if he has something with 8 health and you play the Demogorgon, it goes to sleep, it's gonna take 3 at the end of the turn, and you deal 5 with Nightmare, you're gonna be dealing 8, and it's a targeted removal. So this card it's really good, even though I haven't seen a lot of play with it yet. Not a lot of people are playing with it, but it's really good, and it's a common, so it's fairly easy to obtain. For me, it's 4 stars out of 5. That's how good it is. Next one, we have Overclock. Overclock gives a friendly creature Twin Strike and +1 strength. At the end of this turn, it goes to sleep. Well, this is okay. For me, like, giving Twin Strike and 1 strength is not gonna give you a lot of opportunities unless you want to go to the face and then trade against another creature afterwards. Typically, you're not gonna have much health left with trade. So if it was the reverse, where it gave creatures like Twin Strike and like 2 health, for example, or 3 health, then it would be really good. But since that's not the case, for me, it has to be like a 2 stars out of 5. Next one, we have Spellbound, and this is the spell I was talking about that synergizes super well with Nightmare because it costs 1 mana and can put 2 creatures to sleep. So if you combo this with the other spells, this is going to be, for example, with Nightmare, a 2 mana deal 5, which is super good, and 1 extra creature goes to sleep. So this card also has to go into the 4-star category because with Deception, you're typically wanting to stall the game as long as possible, and most stall spells or mechanics are usually super cheap. I see that's the theme with Deception, is that you're not completely getting rid of the opponent's cards, but you're stalling, and at the same time you're stalling, the stall is relatively cheap, and allows you to play other cards at the same time. So that's kind of like the overall theme of Deception. So this card has to go into the 4-star category, 4 stars out of 5 for me. Next card, we're going on to the 2 mana, and this is, in my opinion, it was one of the best cards in the game, but now with the Sanctum system, it kind of got nerfed. This is the Mugging. It costs 2 mana, and it summons 3 1/1 rogue skulkers to a target. So here what you're gonna have is that if for example the opponent creature has 1 health, this is still gonna summon the 3 creatures, the 3 1/1s, and one of them is gonna attack, kill the 1 health creature, and the other 2 are gonna stay on the board. And this is a huge way to put a lot of presence on the board. Now the thing is that with Sanctum, when your creature attacks an opponent's creature and your dies and the opponent's creature doesn't die, then you're gonna give them favor. So for example, if you're using Mugging against a creature that has 3 health, which you would use a lot back in the day, what's gonna happen is that the first two rogue skulkers, since they attack and they get killed and the other doesn't, the opponent's creature, you're gonna be giving at least, for example, 6 favor, so 3 for each skulker that dies. You're giving 6 favor for free to the opponent, and that's not that great. For me, it was definitely a 4-star card, but now I'm gonna have to move it down to the 3-star category because of the Sanctum system, because it was like an unseen nerf on mugging. Next, we have heads or tails. Randomly, either both gods take 4 damage or just opposing god takes 3 damage. This card's terrible. Everything that's RNG, it's like playing with fortune, and some people are lucky, other people aren't. But the thing is, you would want to be playing this with an aggressive deck, and there's better options to play in terms of minions with Deception to be able to do this, and with the God Power. So this card definitely has to go into the 1-star category because it sucks. The next one, Sleep Dart for 2 mana. Target creature goes to sleep and it gains burn +3. In my opinion, this is one of the best cards that Deception has access to, because not only does it give sleep, but it also guarantees that that creature is going to take 3 damage. So that creature is not going to attack the next turn, and it's going to take 3 damage, and the following turns it's going to continue taking damage, but the first turn it doesn't attack, so this is guaranteed to hit. So this card for me has to go into the 4 stars, because it can also be comboed with a lot of other cards. You can, for example, have a Demogorgon in play that deals damage to creatures that are sleeping, and then it has 6 health. You use a Sleep Dart. It takes 3 damage from the Demogorgon and 3 damage at the end of the turn after this card is played. So it takes 6 damage. It's a lot of damage to dish out with just 2 mana, and other types of combinations and mechanics. So this card is 4 stars for me. Next, we're moving on to the 3 mana category. Ambush pulls a random enemy creature to the top of the opponent's deck, reduces its mana cost to 1. First of all, it's random enemy creature, so it's terrible. Second, it reduces cost to 1. This is super dangerous because some creatures benefit a lot from being from costing 1 mana, because then they can interact with other cards they have in their hand. Typically, there's the mana curve is adjusted so that, for example, you cannot combo 2 5 mana cards together unless you have a bag of tricks, or you cannot combo like a 7 mana with 5 mana because it's super powerful. But with this, they're gonna have that possibility, and you're just basically asking to get completely wrecked the next turn with a crazy combo. So for me, this has to go into the 1 star. It has to be 1 stars out of 5. Next one, we have Ancient Curse. Ancient Curse adds a mana bind to your opponent's hand. Mana binds is okay, but I've seen that not a lot of people are running this type of mechanics, not used at all. Other cards also have this, and they're not running decks, so it might be interesting if you want to prevent opponents from doing certain types of combos, but then you're just stalling for a turn or 2. So for me, this has to go into... It's not as bad as Ambush and the other cards, so it can still be used in some specific scenarios, so I would give this 2 stars out of 5. Next one, we have Guerrilla Sabotage, and Guerrilla Sabotage is really interesting. I like it a lot, even though it's quite dangerous to use because it's a random enemy creature, but it pulls it into the opponent's hand. So for 3 mana, you're stalling the board. This is better than giving it sleep, because if you give it sleep, then he's gonna play another creature, and he might have the tempo advantage. But this guarantees, if he has like 1 creature, this guarantees you the tempo advantage, because you're gonna be playing this for 3 mana, and then you're possibly gonna have like an extra 3 or 4 or 5 mana to be able to play something else and gain that tempo advantage on the opponent. So for me, this has to go into the 4 stars, even though I haven't seen this being played a lot, but it has. It's really good because it gives you the tempo advantage. Next one, we have False Beast at 4 mana. 2 random enemy creatures go to sleep, 2 random friendly creatures go to sleep, and each get 3 strength. This is okay. It basically stalls the whole board, but it costs 4 mana, and I believe that these types of cards that put enemy creatures to sleep, unless it's a minion or a creature, it's not gonna be that great for 4 mana to be able to stall the whole board. So I'm definitely gonna have to give this like a 2 stars out of 5, because I haven't seen this card being played even once since I started the game. So next one, Laertes Vendetta. Give target friendly creature and your relic deadly until the end of the turn. This is interesting, although you have creatures that can do this. There's a creature that gives deadly to other creatures. It might be interesting to play depending on the meta. If a lot of big creatures, if the meta is super control heavy and has a lot of big creatures, then this is really good. It allows you to kill an Hydra with with a small creature. If you have something with Blitz that's small, can be paired with a Vendetta, and that's really good. For example, on that 2/2 Blitz that costs 1. So this is gonna be 3 stars. I would say it's on the upper hand of 3 stars. I haven't seen this being played, but it depends on the meta. So right now it doesn't need have a lot of use, but it might in the future. So 3 stars. Next one, we got Pickpocket. Copy the last spell and the last creature your opponent played and put them into your hand. This might be super powerful. I've seen this being played and I completely got owned because you can choose which card you're gonna copy. And typically, let's say for example they play a Demogorgon and you copy this afterward. You're gonna have a Demogorgon, or they play a super powerful spell. You're gonna have that spell because you can choose when to play this. And typically the opponent is not playing in a way that they're gonna think that the last spell or the last creature they're gonna play has to be bad because of Pickpocket. But I see this as one of the cards that has a lot of potential, but then it's also gonna be impaired by the fact that if it's used a lot, then when people are gonna be playing against Deception, they're gonna be doing their plays according to this, and maybe leaving the worst spells or the worst creatures for last, so that they don't get pickpocketed. So for me, it has to be 3 stars because it can be really good, it can be really bad, but it has a lot of potential. So it can become super powerful in the future. Next one, we're jumping right onto the 6 mana because there's no 5 mana Genesis Deception spells, and that's gonna be the Fill the Coffers. Add a random spell, creature, and relic from your opponent's card to your hand. This is it's a draw 3 for 6 mana, and Magic has draw 3 for 5 mana. But the thing is, this is gonna give you a spell, a creature, and relic from the opponent's card. So there's a lot of interactions that can be played. Typically, you would only play this on a turn where you have the tempo advantage. If you don't have it, you're not gonna play this because you're gonna lose an extra turn if you're losing in terms of tempo. But this card is really good because it gives you a lot of options to your hand. So I'm definitely gonna have to put this at the 4 stars. Even though it's not played a lot, I've seen this being played and completely owning me without even knowing. So this has to be 4 stars for me. Even though it's on the lower end of 4 stars, almost 3, but it's still 4 stars. Next one, we have Three's a Crowd. I haven't seen this being played a lot, but I love this card. This card pulls 2 random enemy creatures from the board into their controller's hand and also summons a 3/2. So for 6 mana, you get rid of 2 creatures, and imagine they're 2 big creatures. That's gonna take the opponent 2 extra turns to put them on the board again, and it also gives you a 3/2 body. So for me, this is amazing. I'm not gonna give it 5 stars. I'm gonna give it 4 stars because I think that 5 stars have to be like the creme de la creme the best cards in each toolkit. So for me it's 4 stars, but it's pretty close to 5 stars. Next one, we have the Deception God spell. So we have the Deception Untrodden. Like the Death spell that we reviewed previously, this changes your God power into one that allows you to, for 2 mana, get a random card from the opponent's God, and also summons a 1/1 and puts it on the board, the Larceny. So it's super good. The God power is super good. It's like a flip 2.0. And it also, each enemy creature goes to sleep, so it gives you a complete stall for a turn. So it's pretty good. Even though I haven't seen a lot of people play this, I really like to play it. But it's still, for me, it's still not on the level of 5 stars, so it's gonna have to be definitely 4 stars on the upper hand as well. But it's a really cool card that you should try out if you can. It's, even though it's legendary, so it's quite expensive. Next one, and the final spell that we have in Deception. And it's quite interesting to be the final spell, because that's the one I'm gonna give 5 stars to. Charm. Charm is one of the best cards in the game because it gives you control of an opponent creature, gives it goblets, so it works really well as a finisher. You can look at your opponent's hand and take a card away from his hand. So any type of card that allows you to look at your opponent's hand and take cards from it into your hand are stupidly good, because, for example, they're playing with a Hydra, or they're waiting for that turn, or like, for example, if they're playing Nature and they have a Jotun and they're gonna drop it on turn 8. If you get to 8 mana first, perhaps you're going first in the game, or you use a bag of tricks, you're gonna be able to snatch it away from them and use it for yourself. They lose their possibility, their best cards, and you get it for yourself. And also, you can also pick a creature from the opponent and trade it against another creature, and both of them die, so it can function as targeted removal as well. It's super flexible. The only problem is that if you're running 2 Deception decks against each other, if both people are running Deception, you're gonna have to think and play your Charm, and there's another spell, the Cutthroat, inside. Both of those spells, you're gonna have to be playing them accordingly so that the opponent doesn't get to take your spells away or your creatures. I've played games where I've seen that there's a back and forth, like I take his Hydra, he takes the Hydra back, then I take the Hydra back, and then he takes the Hydra back. It's super fun. But then if, for example, if I use Charm and I take his Charm, he's gonna run out of options to recover back that creature that I take. So there's a lot of flexibility here. This is definitely one of the best Deception cards. It's 5 stars for me, and that's a good note to finish on. There's no relics in Deception in the Genesis set, so we're kind of fine with this. We've reviewed all the Deception spells for the Genesis set, and I hope you guys liked this video. So if you did, make sure you smash that like button down below, and answer the question in the description to participate in the giveaway. Also, if you don't agree with any of these reviews, make sure you put it down in the description down below, and why you shouldn't, or for example different types of mechanics that I haven't talked about or thought about during the review that happened to you. It's great for us to discuss this and see which are the best cards in the game. Anyways guys, see you guys next time. Packs out. Bye bye.